start recording it from now on. Yeah. For sure. So let's do login. Okay. So basically, what's this assignment saying? We got to connect to a database, retrieve records from it, use session to kind of communicate that we have found a user. So validations and fields to include all this stuff. When we log in, then we just kind of verify that the email and password is in there. But how do we kind of make them log in? Well, we use the session. So we have a login and registration form, a success page upon successful login and register, and display error messages if login and registration validations fail. And use MD5 to hash passwords before inserting them into the database. Okay, so let's first create our database, because that is going to be, in my opinion, the most important kind of first step. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say create schema, and let's just call this login reg flask, and I'm going to bet that it's already taken. No, it's not. All right, there we go. Cool. So if I go into login reg flask, create table, I'm just going to create a users table. So what are the contents of this table? ID. We need to auto increment it. First name. Cool. Varchar 45 is fine. Last name. What else? Email. Password. I mean, you could call it hashed password, but you're just going to assume that it's hashed, right? Important thing about this, actually, I'm not sure how long MD5 stores its encrypted information, but I know later on when you use bcrypt, it gives you characters of length 60, so you're going to actually have to modify this one. So let's just make this varchar, I don't know. 255 is the max, so might as well just make it as long as possible. Okay, were there any other fields? No. Oh, well, password confirmation is just going to be a field on your form. Yes. So you only need to have the salt in the database if you're changing the salt for every user, right? So up to you guys. Do you want to see me make like some randomly generating function that makes random hashes and puts them, salts and puts them in the database? If you want, that's fine, but we're never going to do anything like this again with MD5. Like starting from Monday, essentially with Django, we'll be using bcrypt instead. So up to you guys. Okay, so we'll say nix on that. We'll just use I'll just do basic salt, a basic salt. We won't store it in the database. It'll just be the same salt for every entry in the database. Sure, let's just do that. Create that. Date time. There's no real update capability, but why not? Okay. So let's apply these. So these have applied. Let's just double check our database. So let's go inside of here. No users. Awesome. Awesome. All right, so now let's create our app. So we're going to get out of Pizza Maker. We're going to create a directory called login reg flask, cd into login reg flask, make directory templates, and I'm going to touch server.py. Then I'm going to copy the my connection file over. I should really, oh no, it's in the 7 now. Flask, Pizza Maker, don't select the PYC. I always do that. All right, so I can just open this up in Sublime. All right, so first things first, from flask import flask. What else do we need? We need render template, flash, request, redirect, anything else? Session. Yes. Okay. Now we can say from MySQL connection import MySQL connector. Okay. Then I say app equals flask name app.secret key equals logs, and then app.run debug equals true, and then I'll say at app.route slash def log reg return render template. Let's see, regis log reg.html. Okay. So I also need to say the MySQL equals MySQL connector on the app variable, and the name of my database was login reg flask. Okay. Cool. So let's create our log reg HTML. So let's make our HTML login and register. H2 register a new user. So kind of what I like to do is I like to open up this edit, even though I'm not going to edit anything, and then just kind of use it as a reference for what I'm going to write in my form. Let's move this over. Something like that. And then we could say something like form. What's the action going to be?
Oh, the action is
to users, right? The method will be post, right? So let's start with first name. I kind of do this sketchy thing where I put p tags around all my inputs. Input type text, name equals, let's just call it first name, the same way I named it in my column. Is that cool with you guys? Is it too ambiguous? Should I name it something different? No? It's good? All right. So we have first name, last name, email, password confirmation. And then let's do input type submit. So last name, email, password,
shouldn't the input type be password too?
yes. What's the difference?
Can't read password.
Exactly. So let's call this password conf. Okay. Anything else that we need? I don't think so, right? Okay. So I've already gone way too far without checking if this thing breaks, so let's do that already. So server.py. Okay. Localhost 5000. Awesome. So we're here. All right. So here I'm going to kind of demonstrate one error that is a little bit cryptic, just so that you guys can maybe just see it in action, what happens. But what did we name our route? If we said at app.route users methods equals post, then I would say def register. So let's say something like I want to print out request.form at key name. Okay. So and then let's just return a redirect to slash. So obviously what's going to happen is when I enter in some information here, I'm going to get an error. But this error isn't going to really tell me anything. It just says bad request, right? It's not even helpful in the too much information Flask way that is normally there. So what's going on here? Well, it says it got a bad request, but I mean, even in your terminal, it doesn't show up, right? So when you see this bad request error, what you need to think about is what even in my code interacts with my request? Well, the only thing you really interact with request in Flask is request form. So if you're getting a key error on request form, it could cause this bad request to show up. Anybody know why this key error is happening? Yeah. Yeah, it's just called first name or last name, right? It didn't match. So there currently is nothing to print out in there, right? So it couldn't unwrap that data. You just get this bad request error, okay? Cool. So what do we need to do when we register a user?
Save their information to the database.
First? What's the first thing we do? What are we going to do with the form data? You guys are very eager to put things in your database.
Validate it.
Validate it. You need to validate it first, right? So let's do that. So let's look at what our validations require, okay? Let's just copy this. All right. So first name is letters only, at least 2 characters, and that it was submitted. So how are we going to do this? Well, how did we do validations before? Do you guys remember? With the flash messages earlier? If-else statements, right? So I'm going to say something like if the length of, request form first name is less than 2, right? Flash first name must be at least 2 characters. Okay. How do we check if it was letters only? Is alpha? Okay. So you could say if not request dot form something like that first name dot is alpha, right? Or is it a standalone function or is it on strings? Is it a method on strings? Let me look it up.
It's on strings.
Okay, cool. So flash first name must be all letters. Okay. What else? If it was submitted, so if you say if not request.form, but really what you should say maybe is if, we should do this in like the very beginning, if the key called first name not in request.form, right? Then you could say flash first name must have a value. Okay? Cool. So let's just enter in some faulty data just to make sure this works. So it seems like it's not working, but that's because we forgot our template stuff. So if I say with messages equals get flashed messages for message in messages p tag message and for and with. Cool. So if I enter nothing, how about if I enter in something correct? Okay, cool. So maybe I would have to say it's going to be in request form regardless, perhaps. So it wouldn't be if first name not in request form. But maybe what you could say is
The first length is less than.
is just 0.
Well, I mean, if the name is less than 2, it's already not. Good
It's already
enough.
not some. Yeah.
But you could only do it if length is less than 0.
So are you guys fine with no check for even the existence of first name because that's already covered with the at least 2 characters bit? You guys cool with that? All right, cool. So let us do what we do best and reuse some of this code, right? Last name, right? Last name has the exact same requirements. Cool. So let's do the email. So before I kind of go and I talk about the email regex that we use, would anybody like an explanation about what this regex, like what the heck it's doing? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, sure, cool. So this is the regular expression. So let's just do it like this. So in order to use regular expressions, we need to import the regular expression module, which is called RE. We can also set a variable called email regex, right? And basically what we're telling it is what regex is it's like a way of defining pattern matching. So what are these different patterns? I'll kind of go over that very briefly, but everything after the R, you don't need to worry about. So like the R quote, that's just saying, oh, we're just starting some regex here. It's just in saying this is a regex literal, right? Cool. So what does this caret mean? This caret stands for the beginning of the string, right? Then what you can think of is let's group all this stuff in these brackets together. What does it look like to you?
A to Z.
Z0 through 9, dots and the underscores.
So what that's saying is this is like a set of characters, right? And these are the legal characters within that set. All lowercase, yeah, no other ones are allowed, right? But what's important is also right here this plus sign. So regex is kind of made up of these like sets of characters followed by a definition of how many times they can be repeated. So the plus sign means I need to repeat this at least once. I need to have at least one instance of any of these characters. Okay? So that's how, that makes sense, right? Then you have the @ The @ is just a literal @ like @gmail.com, right? Then you have another set of characters, right? And then you also want to say I want that to repeat any number, at least once, not any number, at least once.
I'm sorry, can I stop you?
Yeah.
Why do you want it to repeat at least once?
Because you don't want to say @.com,
I see.
right? You want to say at least one letter.com, right? Here, what this is it's the same thing as what's going on here. It's an @ sign, right? But here it's a dot. But inside of regex, dot is like already like a special character, so they have to escape it by using this slash. So that's what's going on. And again, you have like this time you can't have endings of your domain have numbers in them, right? I've never heard of like Google.13, It doesn't really make I've never really thought of it that way, but I guess you can, right? That pattern repeats any number of at least one time, and then the $sign stands for the end of the string. So that's the pattern that you can use to abstract the format of an email address, which is pretty cool. I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. All right. So any questions about that? Yeah.
Could you modify that to do like phone numbers and stuff as well, or is that how they do it? Or?
Yeah, you could say you could probably simplify it even further. But what you could do if I was just gonna like freehand it, it would be like start, and then you'd have to say 0 through 9, and then I believe you can also do something like brackets for the number of repetitions, like you need that exact number of repetitions, and then you would probably need the dash in there, and then you would just repeat this every time for every set of numbers in the phone number, something like that. But yeah, you could definitely do it for stuff like phone numbers. Cool. Regex is really cool, actually. Once you can kind of wrap your head around it, it's really fun to think of, like, how do I make certain things like, we'll get into that with the, what's it called? Oh, just kidding. I thought there was a thing, maybe it's in the challenge, where it says one letter, one uppercase and one lowercase. I guess not. All right.
Are you just making?
Yeah, I might be. I might
that
be.
was in the Flash registration.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Cool. Well, that's good. I don't have to do it for this one. Yeah.
From one of the assignments, they asked like the hacker or whatever these options. They wanted to do like a date format. I think I was having fun with that one.
Date formatting is different than regex. Date formatting is you're gonna have to take the string that gets sent in the request form, convert that into a Python date, then compare it to datetime.datetime.now. But that, I mean, that's how you would do it. That's how you would do it. I can totally go over date validations though, because that's important.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was the hacker or whatever.
If not re.match, so no, definitely I do want to talk about it though. Just maybe not in the context of like right now, but it is important. So if I want to do the next section, valid email format, and it was submitted, then you could say something like if not re.match. Then you pass in the pattern, which is email regex, and then you pass in what the string is that you want to compare to. So that would be something like request form at email. Then flash email is of incorrect format. Okay. Cool. So let's do our password and password confirmation. So if length of request.form password is less than 8, flash password must be at least 8 characters. And what is our final validation? It is just saying something like if request form password is not the same, you can say not equal to request.form password conf. Then flash password fields must match. Cool. So let's check if our validations work. So, all right, emails of incorrect format. So let's enter in some actual good data. So if I said Kevin Kim, Kevin at test.com, password fields must match. Okay, good. All right, so that validation is also happening. All right. So we've kind of got the validations to work. So what's our flow? What happens if I fail validations? Do I enter the item into the database?
No.
What do I do instead?
Redirect back.
Okay. So in order to kind of keep track of that, I will kind of create this flag called errors, and I'm going to set it equal to false. And then in any of these, right, if any of these happen, I'm going to set errors equal to true. Okay? Command click. If you command click on multiple lines, you'll select all those lines at that position. Yeah. Oh, it's option in VS Code? Thank you. I was actually wondering about that because I'm sure any self-respecting text editor allows you to write on multiple lines at once. It's true. It's such a needed like thing for coding.
I've seen that also in Atom, but I don't remember how. I don't know if
I think in Atom it's the same way. Command click. Yeah. Cool. So what I'm gonna do is all I'm gonna say is, if this flag, if errors, if I want to be super succinct about it, right? Then I'm gonna return a redirect. Else, if there are no errors, then I can create my query, right? So let's go through and make this query together. What kind of query is this? Okay. So, actually, I kind of wanted to show it side by side, but I also want you guys to see the whole query too. Okay. So insert into, it's called the users table, right? So what goes here? Column names. So I say first name, last name, email, password. Anything else? Password conf's not in the database.
Do you want to hash your password before putting it?
Yes.
Isn't there an option for MySQL to do that on its own as we append the data? I remember there was.
You can run. SQL does have an MD5 function inside of it, but we want to get you used to doing the hashing in Python. But there is an MD5 function, I believe. Okay, cool. So
When you say updated, is that just going to be anytime they log in? That's gonna log that they logged in, or is that going to be a separate?
it's more like if they change the user information, right? I mean, I guess you could also keep track of when they logged in, but I would, if I was going to be keeping track of that kind of stuff, I think I would want to keep that separate from updated app. But that's really up to whoever makes the website.
Where would you typically keep that?
Huh?
Where would you typically keep that?
Like a different column called like last logged in time or something. Yeah. Cool. So let's import MD5. Is it from somewhere?
No,
Right?
it was just important.
Cool. So I just commented out this query for a little bit so we could focus on the hashing. Okay? So what I'm gonna do is let's also create our secret key variable. I mean, not our secret key, our salt variable. So let's just say salt equals like really insecure. Okay.
Use the OS in something to see what was in your fault variable.
Could you show me how you use it?
No, this is on the platform, so to make the salt randomize.
I thought we decided that we weren't going to randomize the salt.
I thought you were just gonna make the variable salt randomize. I'm sorry.
But then if I randomize it, I'd have to save it in the database.
Okay. Cool.
For sure. I mean, it is a little more professional than this, but all right. So, what do I need to say? I need to say something like hashed password equals md5.new, and then I pass in the variable name, so that's request.form password, and then I'll just put the salt on like both sides of it. Okay? And then let's just print hashed password. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, just in case I do something wrong. Okay? So Kim k@kim.com.
Nope.
Password. B function did not return a response, but let's see if it actually printed it. MD5 hash object. So what are we missing here? Don't we have to run a method on this hash object? Hex digest, right? I think we can run it right here. .hex digest. And then for now, let's just return a redirect to slash, even though we'll be going to success later. So I can just resubmit this form information, and now we can see if it actually and oh, thank you. I printed out the method. That was smart. So let's password. Okay, let's check it out. There we go. That's what we want. So now we have all of our pieces set up, right? So let's actually write our query now. So insert into users, first name, last name, email, password, created at, updated at. Then we're going to say the values are, so I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm just going to say A, or I'll call it FN. I like making them acronyms. So FN, LN, EM for email, PW, and created at, updated at, we can actually just use, again, the built-in now function within MySQL, okay? So we need to say something like data equals this dictionary, right? So let's go through this together. If I wanted to get request form first name, what key does that belong to?
FN.
Cool. Same for last name. Okay. How about for email? EM. Yeah, cool. I think you guys get the idea, which is very, very good. And then here it is PW. Yeah.
Instead of request form, you would want the hash password.
Exactly. Okay. Now I could say something like mysql.querydb on the query and the data. Okay. Now, what we could do that's kind of like exotic is we could actually have the functionality of when they register, they get already pre-logged in, right? So how would you do that? Well, you could say something like the variable new user equals what returns from this query, and what returns from this query is the last user who is added into the database, right? So I could say something like what? In the session, let's just hold on to something like user ID, because that's what you really want, right? Session user ID equals new user at key ID. And then let's also do session user name equals new user at key first name plus a space plus a new user at key last name. We're just concatenating those two names together. Okay? And then let's return a redirect to success. Okay? So if I enter in this information correctly, I should get an error, right? Because why? I haven't created the success route yet. So let's do myself again, Kevin at test.com, password. All right. So it says unknown column password in field list. So let's check out what I called it in my database. Oh, I called it hashed password. That's just dandy. So this is called hashed password. Cool. So do you guys want me to kind of go over that again? Where did I find that error? It was right here. It said column password in field list. Can't find it. Okay. Long attribute has no attribute get item. I'm guessing what I'm doing is, yeah. Because I need to say in here, it's going to still be an array of items, I believe. So I just need to get the 0th index. So I don't want to send it in again because then I would rerun the query. So let's just do that again. So if I say I'm Barack, Barack. That's I don't like to keep. I don't like to do current presidents. Oh yeah, Barack Clinton. That's right. Or sorry, George Clinton. George Clinton, and then GOC at whitehouse.gov. Okay, and then password. Oh, I still did it. What?
The zero goes there. It's someone else. It goes next to
Yeah, it should
reporting
be-
a user.
Yeah, it should be right there.
Right
before the
here?
ID, yeah, I think so.
Makes me wonder though. All right, so let's try it. So if I say, Obama, yo mama, and then Obama. Oh my God! I failed my own validation. All right, I'm over this.
I thought you were gonna say George Clinton at Parliament.
As long as
Let's see if they're in the database before we do anything more. Okay, they're all in there, right? And their hash password is not all the same because the algorithm is wrong. It's because I used the same password for all three. Okay.
Was it password?
Yes. Let's just ignore this for now, I suppose. Let's just.
So it'll create the same hash if the password's the same.
So that's the problem with ND5, because if you know how the salt is set up, what the pattern is of the salt around the actual plain text, then you can create what's known as like a rainbow table, and then you can just iterate through literally every combination of characters and then get the hashed results until you find a match, then you know their password. So that's why MD5 is not seen as very secure anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Trying really hard to get that password.
Delete the 0 from the new user, and I think that'll work.
That's what I did, and then I got the error the first
No,
time.
because you had the new user, you had the 0 at the end of the query database.
Not first time.
Yeah, it was like this the first time.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, I would say let's move on into doing the login, because I don't want to keep you guys here on extra content that is not necessary for it, okay? And anyways, we're going to run into this issue again when we do the login. So, let's say how about we define the app route first? Def login. We're not doing the success page yet. We need to log in first. H2. So let's do form. The action is to login. Method equals post. This one's a little simpler, right? You just have two input fields. Email. So email, password, submit. Cool. All right, so we have this login form right here, nice. So let's go create the login route. So if I say def login, I just realized I crashed my whole app. Yep. Let's make sure to restart that. So what do we need to do? There's really There's 2 steps. I consider them 2 steps. What's the first step?
Well, you don't need
Hmm?
Well, you don't need to because you're not inserting. So
You still wanna validate the name and the
You
password.
wanna make sure it's an existing account.
How do you do that?
Question.
You select.
Well, no. How like just like not even thinking about it in terms of code, right?
You
What-
want to reference, I'm guessing, to your SQL database and make sure that it's something that's already existing.
So what would be the common information? The email, right? So you want to check the email first, right? You just want to see, you want to retrieve it based off of the email. Why do you not want us to do the select statement based off the password?
Because as we know, passwords could be the same.
That's true.
You wanna do both.
And-
it's not your key, it's not your
But
ID.
can we do that only calling MySQL at one time? Like selecting, like we can retrieve both, like, let's say for example, the field email and the field password. And so we don't need to call MySQL 2 times, right?
No, you only need to
Okay.
call it once,
Yeah.
right? But you're calling it based off the email. You say where email equals the email that you get
Yeah,
passed
sure.
in. You don't want to also say and the password equals your hashed password
Sure.
because it's just why not just look based off the email and then just see if that record even exists. Maybe you want some logic of if they're not even a registered user yet, right? So let's do that. So let's do query. Let's make this a little different looking. So we'll call this login query. So what kind of query is this? Okay.
Select from
What are we selecting? What columns are we selecting? Hashed password. I also think we might want to just grab the ID while we're at it
Why don't all?
because selecting star is cool, except when you don't want to select star and then you forget how to do it without selecting star.
I
So
was like, we need almost all of the information.
do we?
Well, aside from the created at and updated at, that's all the information.
Okay. So let's write that out. So it's first name, last name.
Well, I guess we don't need a first name and last name for this.
I guess if we were gonna use it in the session, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on what you
What you're gonna use it for.
Yeah. Depends how much you're gonna do right now.
See? That was a good lesson. Depends on what you need, right? And especially when you're joining tables, selecting star might not give you what you want.
Say you're building something for a bank account, and when you first log on, you don't want all that information on your first landing page. You want to land on something that has like a list of bank accounts and not all of your information.
Yeah, you want to be pretty
I
limited.
meant like exactly for this.
Okay.
I meant for this specifically, not in general.
Well, what are we building here? This is the future.
Oh my god. Let's not. I don't even want to live in a reality where this is an actual bank account login, but okay. From users, so select all these fields from users, right? And then we just got to say where email is equal to, let's just say, the user email. Okay. So our data is only going to contain one item. Yeah, only one item. And it's going to be the user email, which maps to request.form at email. Okay. Cool. So what I'm going to do is, all I'm going to say is found user equals mysql.querydb, right? I'm going to look for that particular user if they have that email, and then just pass that row into the found user variable. So if I say mysql.querydb on the login query and the data, let's just print found user, and let's return a redirect to slash. So if I log in, for example, if I was MJ23 at test.com, and whoops, not a password field, and that's because my app crashed. Let me go back. Oops. Okay, so I got redirected. Cool. The reason I bring this up is it is a list, even though the query really only returns one, right?
How did you crash your app?
Oh yeah. What happens in Python? If you have an indented block, like you have like the colons, Python's expecting the line below it to be indented over. But if you have nothing indented over, like for example, if I save here, it's gonna crash. It said expected an indented block. So I accidentally, in my like very frantic command S-ing that I do when I do demos, I did that on accident. Oh, oops. All right. Cool. So again, this is kind of the shape of our data. Let's blow this up a little more. Right here, Michael Jordan. So it's a list that contains a single dictionary. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to hash. Do we hash the password in the database, or do we hash our password that we entered in?
Hash our password.
That we passed in, right? And then we can compare them after, right? So how do we do that? Well, we could say something like hashed input equals md5.new. So we need to salt this input the same way we salted it for the login, right? Otherwise, it's not going to ever recognize if it's the same password. So the hashed input is we're just going to run the same salt and the same MD5 on it, right? And then you could say something like if hashed input is, or you could say double equals to found user at 0, the hashed password. Remember, we have to put the 0 because it's a list. Then we could say, let's print we did it, right? And then just do session. Let's just do user ID equals found user at 0 at key ID, and let's just do session username, and let's just grab this equals not new user but found user at 0. Cool. Okay. So if I say here, if I do actually log in, we want to return a redirect to success, right? That's what the assignment wanted us to do. Else, if that's not the case, then we should apply flash, you messed up, and then return a redirect there, okay? And then at the very end, I'm just going to say right now at app.route/success, def success. It's starting to not look like a word to me, the word success. Return render template success.html. So if I go into here and then I create a new file called success.html, the only reason I'm doing this is to kind of create like a page where you kind of see the logged in information. So let's just do like h2 welcome. We could just say session at key username. Okay. All right. So who had the funniest name? George Clinton. Okay. So goc at whitehouse.gov. Password. There we go. We logged in, right? And then if I messed it up, it says you messed up. Okay. Cool. So do you guys have any questions about that? I mean, I'm sure it was a big process, right? Any questions? So just as like a quick review, I suppose, because I like doing that at the end of the videos. So the steps are to register. You need to validate your input. If your input's valid, then you need to first hash your password, then make your query. I'm realizing probably what happened here. The long type, I believe, is a way of describing integers. So I think this new user is actually just the ID by itself. So the way we have it set up, I don't think we can do what we were trying to do. So let's just shave this down and then just call this mysql.querydb. But basically, once you actually successfully submit that information, you can redirect back to your login page. And then when you actually log in, the steps are find a person based off of the email, then then you need to hash the password again, right? Hash this password, then compare it. If they're the same, then they're the same person, or they exploited MD5 and they're a hacker, and then they're in, right? And that's it. Cool. Thank you, guys.
What's that zero again after found user?
Found user is, so when you run any sort of query DB that's a select, you're going to get it in a list no matter how many rows you get returned. So you want to access row 0. An interesting thing to think about, I'm obviously not going to try to do this right now, but don't we want to make sure that we don't have multiple items, multiple email addresses in the database, right? Because that would cause a problem. So I would say if you guys want to kind of take a crack at this more.
Can you just do that inside of your database?
Yeah, you could say, let's see, right here, you could say something like UQ equals true or something.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah. And then it just gives an error every time. So,
but that's a flask error, right? Yeah, like if the user tries to enter that in, like it's just really bad user experience if they get shown the error message with the underlying framework, right? That's like really unprofessional.
Yeah.
So you would want it, even if you have it like this,
Unless you handle the error.
You could handle the error, right? Or if you're like feeling like, oh, rather than handle the error, I want to just run more SQL queries because that sounds more fun. You could run a query after, like right before you hash your password, you could run a query to see based off of the email, and if you get any returned results, then that's its own kind of special validation error, right? So that would be something that's a little bit outside the scope of what we're doing right now, but something that you would probably want to do in the future. Okay? Cool. Thank you, guys.